The night was alive with the sound of pursuit. Wolves, dozens of them, crashing through the black forest like a storm given fangs and rage. The trees swayed under their weight, branches snapping, roots tearing, and the moon, pale and watchful, bore silent witness to the hunt. She ran, barefoot, bleeding, breath coming in ragged bursts that tore through her chest like knives. Every inhale stung. Every exhale left frost in the cold night air. The forest floor was merciless, slick with rain and mud, the scent of her blood trailing behind her like a beacon. They would find her soon. And when they did, she wouldn't be brought back as a daughter of the pack. She'd be the offering. The Bloodline Altar awaited her. The ancient stones had tasted the blood of traitors, cursed children, and unwanted heirs. And tonight, the pack would spill hers, to purify the bond she never asked for, the power she never wanted. A flash of lightning split the sky open, revealing her face for the briefest heartbeat, pale, haunted, and streaked with tears and grime. Her hair, once the colour of morning wheat, was plastered to her cheeks, her eyes wide with terror, but burning with something deeper. Defiance. It was faint, buried under fear and exhaustion. But it was there, the wild pulse of something ancient, something alive clawing to be let out. She stumbled over a root, hit the ground hard, and pain flared in her ankle. For a moment she couldn't breathe. The forest spun around her, dizzy, endless, whispering her name, not her true name, the name they gave her, the one that didn't belong. The rain turned heavy, washing the blood from her hands, soaking her torn dress until it clung to her skin. The storm howled louder than the wolves now, a furious, trembling thing, as if nature itself was rebelling against what was about to happen. She pressed her palm against the earth. It pulsed beneath her touch, faintly, like a heartbeat. The same heartbeat that throbbed inside her veins when she was angry, when she was cornered, when the truth inside her tried to break free. She had been told to fear it, told it would destroy her, told it was cursed. But right now, in the heart of the storm, it felt less like a curse and more like a promise. She looked up, vision blurring through the rain. Somewhere behind her, the first howl split the air, long, sharp, commanding. The alpha's voice. They were close. Her breath caught, panic surging. She pushed herself to her feet. Ignoring the pain, forcing her body forward, branches lashed at her face, mud swallowed her feet, but she ran anyway, because stopping meant death. Her pulse thudded like thunder. Every sound was amplified. The crack of twigs, the thump of paws, the echo of growls that rolled through the trees like a warning. She could almost hear them whisper it through the storm. "Run, cursed one! Run while you still can!" But even they didn't understand what they were chasing. Even they didn't know the truth of the power they were trying to kill. She had felt it once before, the night her mother died, the night the world went still, and the moon turned red. When her grief broke her open and something else had come through. A force so wild it made the air vibrate. The elders called it an omen, a sin against the bond. But her mother had called it her birthright, and now it was waking again. The storm thickened, branches bowed low as if in reverence or fear. The scent of lightning burned the air. Somewhere, a wolf yelped, startled by a sudden quake beneath the soil. She didn't look back. She couldn't, because if she did, if she saw them, she'd lose the will to fight. The trees began to thin. Through the haze of rain, a faint golden glow flickered in the distance. Her heart leapt. Shelter, light, maybe safety. She sprinted toward it, every step a defiance of the fate carved for her since birth. The glow came from a cave, ancient and half hidden by hanging moss. The air that spilled from it was warm, humming, alive. She didn't stop to think. She ducked inside, pressed herself against the rough stone wall, and tried to quiet her breathing. For the first time in hours, the forest fell silent. Only the rain outside, only her heartbeat echoing in her ears. She slid down the wall, body trembling. The pain in her ankle was sharp now, but she barely felt it through the exhaustion. Tears came uninvited, hot, silent, shaking her shoulders. She didn't cry for herself. She cried for her mother, for the little girl who once believed the pack would protect her, for the love that had turned into a hunt. And as her tears hit the cave floor, The earth shimmered faintly beneath her. Symbols began to appear, faint glowing lines spreading like veins across the stone. She jerked back in shock. The glow was soft, silver-white, the same shade that haunted her dreams. Then she heard it, a whisper. It wasn't from outside, it was inside her head. Child of the broken bond. Her breath hitched. She pressed a hand to her chest. The whisper came again, softer, older, full of sorrow. Your time has come. The glow brightened, racing toward the cave's heart. The air thickened, pulsing with unseen power. She felt dizzy, weightless, drawn toward it as if the earth itself was calling her home. Her fear tangled with awe. Was this what they feared? Was this the thing they wanted to destroy? She stepped forward. The light greeted her like a heartbeat. Her fingers brushed against the symbols. And for an instant, the entire forest outside seemed to exhale. A low, thunderous sound rolled through the mountains. Wolves stopped mid-chase, ears flicking up in confusion. Lightning froze mid-flash, as if the sky itself was holding its breath. Then, silence. And deep within that silence, something ancient stirred. The bond that tied every wolf to the alpha's will, the invisible thread woven through generations, trembled. Then, it snapped. A ripple of pain and disbelief echoed through the pack like a scream they couldn't voice. She didn't understand what she had done. She only knew that when she touched that glowing mark, something shifted in the world, something irreversible. She collapsed to her knees, chest heaving, the light wrapping around her like a cocoon. And as the forest wept rain outside, she whispered to the darkness, voice trembling but fierce. I will not die for their fear. The air stilled. The glow dimmed, and in that moment, in the silence after the bond broke, the kingdom felt it. Every alpha, every wolf, every elder, a sharp pull in their chest. As if a heartbeat had gone missing. The bond, the sacred thread of control, Owl, was gone, and all that was left was her. The girl who ran, the girl who defied the altar, the girl who made the moon tremble. Her story had just begun. If this story pulled you into her world, don't let go yet. Subscribe to Moon King Chronicles, where every tale burns a little deeper, and the next hour will take you further into the storm. The storm hadn't eased. It only grew wilder, as though the heavens themselves were restless after what she had done. The trees groaned under the weight of the wind. The earth pulsed faintly with a rhythm she could feel through her palms. Outside the cave, the forest waited in stunned silence. Every wolf that had chased her moments ago now lingered at the edge of the clearing, unmoving, confused, sniffing the air thick with the scent of burnt ozone and something unfamiliar. Freedom. She didn't know that across the valley, hundreds of miles away, alphas were waking from their sleep. They clutched their chests, gasping for breath, feeling the invisible tether inside them snap like glass under flame. The bond that had ruled their kind for centuries was gone, and at the heart of it, a girl no one wanted. Inside the cave, she stirred. The light had dimmed, but its warmth clung to her skin, tracing faint silver patterns along her collarbone and wrists. Her heartbeat had steadied, her body no longer trembling. But her mind was chaos. She couldn't remember how long she sat there, drenched, shivering, staring into the glow of the markings that now pulsed faintly beneath the stone. Her mother's voice echoed faintly in her head. Never touch the altar, child. Not until the moon calls your name. But the moon hadn't called. It had screamed. And she had answered. A faint sound stirred behind her. At first she thought it was the wind, until the shadows shifted. Someone was there. She froze, her pulse spiking again. The scent reached her first, pine, smoke, iron, and something darker like rain after lightning. It wasn't the pack. It wasn't one of the hunters. This scent carried power, calm, controlled but dangerous. Then, from the mouth of the cave, a silhouette appeared, broad shoulders dripping with rain, eyes like molten gold in the half-dark. His presence filled the space like a storm walking on two legs, silent, steady, and too sure of itself. He didn't move immediately. He just stood there, watching her as though he already knew her, as though he had expected to find her there. The air between them was heavy, Not with threat, but something sharper. Recognition. He took a step forward, slow and deliberate, his boots sinking slightly into the wet earth. The cave light caught his face, sharp lines softened by exhaustion, the faintest scar tracing down from his jaw to his throat. There was something in his eyes, not just curiosity. It was grief, maybe, or understanding. She flinched, pressing herself back against the stone. The faint glow around her body brightened in response, a reflex, as though her power was warning her to stay on guard. He noticed. His gaze flickered to the marks on her skin, and for a moment something unreadable passed over his face. He wasn't afraid. He was aware. He stepped closer. The air shifted. The cave felt smaller, her breath shallower, and yet, beneath the fear, there was an unfamiliar pull, like gravity. He shouldn't be here. No one should have been able to find her. The forest was sealed, shrouded by the same storm that had chased her for miles. But he had walked through it, walked into it. Outside, the thunder rolled, distant and patient, as though the world itself was holding its breath for what would come next. She could feel his eyes tracing the faint glow on her skin. Not with hunger, not with judgment, but with an intensity that unsettled her. He finally spoke, though his voice was low, rough from the cold, carrying the weight of command that came naturally to him. But to her, it felt more like a question. She couldn't make out the words, but the tone made her shiver. Something inside her chest answered, a pulse that didn't belong to fear. Her throat tightened. She couldn't bring herself to move, couldn't decide if she should run again or stay and face whatever this was. The silence stretched between them, charged, uneasy. The rain outside began to soften, tapering into a steady rhythm, like the slow beating of a heart. The storm that had chased her for hours seemed to bow to his presence. She could feel it, the subtle shift in the air, the way the cave responded to him. He was no ordinary wolf. His aura pressed against hers like invisible hands. A test, a question, a challenge. And though she didn't understand why, her power, the wild, rebellious thing that had just shattered an entire kingdom's bond, calmed beneath his gaze, as if recognizing something in him. She didn't want to admit it, but she could feel it, the strange familiarity, the echo between their breaths. He took another step, and she could smell him now, warm pine and smoke, tinged with the faint metallic scent of power. It filled the space between them until it was all she could breathe. Then, softly, he knelt, lowering himself to her level, slow enough not to startle her. The movement startled her anyway. His eyes lifted to hers, and in that instant, everything went still again. The glow from her skin reflected in his golden irises. It looked almost like the light belonged to him too. Her mind screamed to move, to run, to push him away. But her heart, traitorous, trembling, leaned toward the warmth he carried. The world outside no longer mattered. Not the pack, not the altar, not the broken bond, just this moment. Just the stranger who looked at her as if he already knew the parts of her no one else had ever seen. The rain dripped softly from the edge of the cave, each drop echoing like a clock, marking the seconds before everything changed. And then he reached out his hand. She didn't know why she took it. Maybe exhaustion, maybe instinct. But when her fingers brushed his, the ground trembled again. It wasn't the cave this time. It was the air itself, vibrating between them like a string drawn too tight. Her vision flickered, flashes of something she couldn't understand, a forest bathed in silver light, wolves kneeling, a flame that burned without smoke. And his face, older, wearier, standing beside her in the ruins of something vast. She gasped, jerking back, breaking the contact. The visions vanished instantly, leaving her shaking. He stood, the faintest crease forming between his brows. He had seen it too. The realization hit both of them at once, that whatever bound them wasn't coincidence. Something ancient had awakened the moment their skin touched. The prophecy whispered through the years had found its mark, and neither of them would ever be free of it again. Outside, a wolf howled, long and mournful, the kind of sound that made even the strongest bow their heads. The alpha turned toward the sound, his expression darkening, his shoulders tensing as though remembering a command he could no longer obey. For the first time in his life, the bond that connected him to his pack was silent. And now he stood before the one who had broken it. The girl the world would hunt. The girl who carried the mark of the flame. The girl who shouldn't exist. Yet in his chest, beneath the armor of authority and duty, something dangerous stirred. Something that wasn't anger. It was the recognition of a truth he didn't want to name. He was supposed to destroy her. Instead, he wanted to protect her. The cave light flickered, the storm began to rise again, and somewhere deep inside her, for the first time, she wasn't afraid. Because something in his gaze told her the truth she didn't yet understand. Her power hadn't destroyed him. It had found him. If your heart raced with hers tonight, don't stop now. Subscribe to Moon King Chronicles and stay with us as the story deepens. Because in Hour 3, her past will speak, and the world will remember who she really is. The storm faded by dawn. The forest, washed clean and trembling from the night's chaos, looked almost gentle now, but that peace was a lie. Beneath the soft mist rising from the ground, beneath the distant drip of rain from the branches, the land itself felt altered, as if the world had been unstitched and resewn differently, and she was the seam that no longer fit. She woke to the pale hush of morning light seeping through the cave mouth. Her skin was cold, her clothes stiff with dried rain and blood. The stranger, the man with the gold eyes, was gone, but his scent lingered, smoke and pine, faint and steady, grounding her in a world that no longer felt safe. She sat up slowly, every muscle aching. Her reflection shimmered faintly on a puddle near the cave's entrance. Not perfect, not clear, but enough to see what she had become. The faint silver glow still traced her skin like constellations. Her eyes, once soft amber, now carried threads of light that pulsed when she breathed. She should have felt terror. Instead, she felt grief, the kind that sits deep in the bones, not loud, not sharp, but old and familiar. She remembered the altar, the chanting voices, the hands that dragged her there, whispering that it was her destiny to bleed for the pack's survival. And above all, her mother's face. That memory was a wound that never healed. Her mother's voice was gentle even as the others screamed. She remembered the woman kneeling before the Alpha, begging for her daughter's life. She remembered the crack of the verdict, that the child born under the red moon was cursed, born of two bloodlines that were never meant to cross. Her mother was branded a traitor for refusing to hand her over. They called her a witch. They called her unclean. They called her everything except what she was, a mother trying to save her child. The girl had been only 12 when they came. The night burned into her memory like an open flame. The moon hung low, blood red, swollen with omen. Her mother held her tight, whispering prayers in a language no one remembered anymore. Then, the door crashed open and the pack guards came. They dragged her mother out first. She had fought, even then, teeth bared, nails clawing, eyes burning with the same silver light that now lived in her daughter's veins. And then the Alpha had spoken. One word, and her mother fell still. Not dead, not yet, just broken. The girl had screamed until her voice gave out. They told her it was her fault, that her birth had doomed them all, that her blood carried the poison that weakened the bond. And in her grief, the air had cracked open. She remembered the way the candles burst, the way the ground split beneath her small hands, the way the wolves howled in pain, clutching their heads as if something invisible had torn through their minds. That was the first time it happened. The first time she felt it, that power inside her that didn't belong to wolves or humans. Something older, something that remembered the first howl ever sung beneath the moon. After that night, she had been hidden, locked away, moved from den to den, from one shadowed corner of the pack's lands to another, like a secret too dangerous to destroy but too shameful to claim. She grew up learning silence, learning to shrink, to hide, to breathe quietly enough not to draw the world's gaze. Until the day her mother didn't come back. That day broke her in ways no wound could. They told her mother had been executed for treason, but she had seen the truth in the Alpha's eyes. Her mother hadn't been killed for rebellion. She had been killed for love. For loving someone the bond forbade. Two bloodlines that were never meant to merge. One from the Moonborn, one from the Fireline. One of control, one of chaos. And the child they made, her, was the living proof that the balance could be broken, that the bond could be undone. Now, sitting in the echo of that knowledge, she finally understood why they had feared her. It wasn't because she was weak. It was because she was possibility. Her fingers trembled as she touched the faint markings on her arms. The silver lines seemed to pulse with each heartbeat. As though responding to her thoughts, she wanted to hate it, to rip it out, to return to the silence that had once kept her safe. But part of her, the part that still remembered her mother's final words, refused. Your power is not their curse, my heart. It is their truth. When the bond breaks, the world will finally see. The words returned like a whisper from the past, threading through her chest like warmth in the cold. The Alpha's face, the stranger with the gold eyes, flashed in her mind. The way he had looked at her in the cave, as though he had seen her before. She didn't understand him. Didn't know why his gaze didn't carry fear or hatred. Maybe he was like her, trapped in a world that demanded obedience, pretending the chains were his choice. The thought lingered, unwanted but persistent. She rose slowly, wincing as her ankle protested. The cave felt smaller now, the walls pressing in as dawn crept higher. The glow of her skin faded as sunlight reached the floor, hiding what the darkness had revealed. She stepped outside. The forest was still dripping, quiet except for the occasional bird call echoing through the mist. The air smelled of wet soil and pine, sharp and alive. And somewhere far away, a howl answered. Not angry, not mourning, just calling. She froze, heart hammering. It wasn't one of the pack's calls. She would have recognized those notes, the tone, the command beneath them. This was different, deeper, sadder. A call meant for someone lost, for her. Something shifted in her chest, not the bond, but something older. The part of her that still wanted to belong, that still wanted to be seen. But she knew better. Belonging had always come with a price. The mist thickened around her, curling like fingers reaching for her face. The forest whispered her name again, but not the name the pack had given her, the one her mother had whispered only once, before the end. Liara. She closed her eyes. The name felt like home and heartbreak all at once. The power beneath her skin stirred again, faint but steady, as if answering to that name alone. She understood now. The bond snapping wasn't an accident. It was a release. Every alpha who had felt that break, every wolf suddenly free, would come searching for the cause. Some would want to destroy her. Some would want to use her. And one had already found her. The memory of his golden eyes lingered. The way he had looked at her like someone who'd lost something too. She didn't know who he was. But she knew this much. He was tied to what she had become. And wherever he was now, he was feeling the same pull. The same hunger for answers, the same sense that something ancient was stirring between them. Liara turned toward the forest path. The mist parted before her like breath from a sleeping god. The world had shifted overnight. She could feel the weight of it pressing against her bones. The girl who once ran from her pack was gone. In her place stood the heir to a secret older than the moon itself. She didn't ask for it. She didn't want it. But it had chosen her, and the kingdom would never be the same again. If you've felt her pain, if you've carried scars of your own exile, her journey is only beginning. Subscribe to Moon King Chronicles, where every story remembers what the world forgets. In Hour 4, the myth awakens, the prophecy stirs, and destiny begins to breathe. The forest was silent the next morning, too silent. The mist lingered between the trees like breath caught in prayer. Liara awoke to the soft hum of magic in the air. It wasn't the usual song of dawn or the whisper of the trees. It was deeper. It pulsed in her blood, as if her heartbeat had found a twin somewhere far beyond her body. She sat up slowly, her fingers trembling. The fire had gone out hours ago, but her skin was still warm. Warmer than it should have been. Then she heard it. A voice, not from outside, but from within. It whispered her name, not in fear, not in anger, but in reverence. Leora! She gasped, clutching her chest. The sound was like wind through ancient stones, masculine, calm, powerful. The door creaked open, and there he stood. Cale. His eyes were no longer their ordinary steel grey. They were glowing faintly gold, as if the same light that had burst from the altar had found home in him. She stumbled to her feet, backing up against the cabin wall. "What did you do to me?" she breathed. Kyle took a hesitant step forward, his expression torn between awe and pain. "I didn't do this," he said softly. "The altar, it did. It bonded us." Leora shook her head violently. No, I won't accept that. I'm not your mate." His jaw clenched, the golden light flickering in his eyes. "Tell that to the bond." He reached out, and for a heartbeat she felt the pull, that invisible thread that yanked her closer, heart to heart, soul to soul. She felt his pulse inside her chest, his breath in her lungs. The connection was unbearable, terrifying. Intoxicating. She wrenched away, panting. "Stop it!" "I can't," he said, pain seeping into his tone. "Neither can you." He turned his head as if listening to something far away. "Do you feel it?" he asked quietly. "The heartbeat beneath the soil?" "The wolves have gone silent because the forest itself is waiting." Leora pressed her hands to her ears. "You're mad." But then she heard it too. A low, rhythmic thrum, faint but steady, echoing underfoot. It wasn't imagination. It was real. The earth was alive, and it was responding to them. Kyle looked at her, his voice breaking. "We've awakened the bloodline." The words made her knees weak. The bloodline wasn't just legend. It was the sacred tether between the first wolves and the moon goddess herself. And if it had truly awakened, then every wolf in the kingdom could feel it. Somewhere miles away, an alpha dropped to his knees, clutching his chest. A Luna screamed. The pack bonds twisted, snapping and reforming. The world of wolves trembled as the old magic stirred. Leora stumbled outside, eyes wide. She saw golden light rippling along the treetops, dancing through the clouds. She felt her own blood singing to it. She turned to Cale, voice trembling. "What does it mean?" He looked up at the glowing sky, then back to her, his expression filled with awe and fear. "It means the goddess has chosen," he said quietly, "and every alpha will come for you." The hours that followed blurred into one long nightmare. Kyle worked in silence, drawing ancient sigils into the ground with ash and salt. He told her not to leave the clearing, no matter what she heard. But as dusk fell, the air grew thick, too thick. The distant howls began again, one by one, packs answering to a call older than time. The bond pulsed in her chest, stronger now. When Kyle stumbled, she felt it too, pain flashing through her ribs like shared lightning. "Kyle!" she shouted, grabbing his arm. "You're bleeding!" "It's the connection," he rasped. "They're trying to sever it. The council won't let a bonded pair exist outside their control, especially one born from the altar." Leora's stomach dropped. "So they'll kill you." He met her gaze, a faint, sad smile ghosting across his lips. "They'll kill us." The night deepened. The stars burned cold. And deep within the forest, something ancient began to stir. A shape moving through the mist, larger than any wolf, eyes glowing white like moons. The guardian of the altar. Leora could feel it, not as fear, but as recognition. It was coming for her. For them, to test the bond that had defied death and destiny. Kyle turned toward the sound, his body shifting. Fur rippled down his back, claws digging into the dirt. His voice, when it came, was half growl, half vow. "No one will take you from me." And as the beast emerged, massive and spectral, Leora realized the altar hadn't cursed her. It had chosen her. The bloodline was awake, and the world would burn before it went back to sleep. The forest burned with moonlight. Every leaf shimmered silver, every shadow breathed. The air was thick with the scent of wolves, dozens, hundreds, maybe thousands, all converging from every corner of the kingdom. They were coming for her. Leora could hear their howls now, layered, endless, echoing through the night like drums of war. It wasn't a hunt for prey. It was a hunt for power. The bloodline had awakened, and with it, the hunger of every alpha who'd ever dreamed of breaking fate itself. Kyle stood at the edge of the clearing, his body half shifted. Gold veins of light pulsed beneath his skin. His claws were slick with earth and blood. He could feel the approach of the packs through the bond, like pressure building behind his ribs. "They're close," he growled. "Too close." Leora clutched her cloak tighter. The bond pulsed between them, erratic and hot. Her heart beat to his rhythm, her lungs burned when he tensed. They were one heartbeat split in two bodies bound by the altar's will. "Then we run," she said. Kyle turned to her, eyes fierce. "Run where?" "There's nowhere the bond won't lead them." "Then we fight." He froze, his jaw tightening. He wanted to tell her no, that she was fragile, human, breakable. But when he looked at her, at the golden light flickering faintly under her skin, he knew better. The altar hadn't chosen weakness. It had chosen something older, something divine. A rustle from the trees. A low snarl. The first pack arrived. They emerged from the mist, dark shapes, fur-matted, eyes burning red. The alpha of the East Pack stepped forward, his voice a rasp of authority. "Kyle of the Forgotten Den," he said, "you stand against the decree of the High Council. The bloodline belongs to the throne. The female—" "She has a name," Kyle interrupted, his growl low and dangerous. The alpha sneered. "She's not yours to claim." Kyle's claws dug into the dirt. "The goddess disagrees." Leora could feel the magic rising off him, the same wild energy that had flared at the altar. The alpha flinched as if the air itself turned sharp. Then the world exploded into motion. Kyle moved like lightning. One leap, one snarl, and the first wolf went down. Blood sprayed the leaves. The others circled, their growls rumbling like thunder. Leora's body trembled, not from fear but from the bond. Every time Kyle struck, she felt it like fire through her veins. Every time he bled, pain stabbed her ribs. She wanted to run. But she couldn't. Something deep inside her began to rise, a song of power, a vibration older than language. The ground beneath her feet pulsed in rhythm with her heartbeat. She lifted her hands, unsure what she was doing, and golden light burst from her palms. The wolves froze mid-charge. The light rippled outward, pure and searing. The trees bowed. The mist parted. For one impossible moment, everything went still. Kyle turned, eyes wide. "Leora!" She stared down at her hands, the light still humming between her fingers. "I didn't mean to—" "It's the altar's gift," Kyle said, awe flooding his tone. "You're not just bonded, you're marked." But before they could breathe, the next howl rose, louder, closer, filled with fury. The Western Pack had arrived. 1,000 red eyes glowed through the trees. The ground shook beneath their paws. Kyle grabbed her arm. "We can't hold this ground. We go to the cliffs." "The cliffs?" she panted. "They can't surround us there." He pulled her into motion. The world blurred into silver and shadow. Branches tore at her clothes. Roots clawed at her boots. The wolves followed, their snarls echoing through the night. Leora stumbled once, twice. Each time, Kyle caught her before she fell. His breath was hot against her ear. "Don't stop, no matter what happens. I won't leave you. You won't have to." They broke through the tree line just as the moon reached its peak, a monstrous full disk, heavy and low. The cliffs fell away beneath them, a sheer drop into mist and roaring river. Kyle turned, shifting fully this time. His fur shimmered gold-white under the moon, every line of him divine and dangerous. The pack emerged behind them, a sea of black and grey, eyes gleaming. The lead alpha stepped forward, lips curling back from bloody fangs. "End this!" he snarled, "or we'll tear you both apart." Kyle's growl rolled across the cliffs like thunder. "Try." The fight that followed wasn't battle. It was storm. Kyle tore through them like a creature born of war and moonlight. Every strike of his claws left trails of burning gold. But there were too many. For every wolf that fell, 2 more leapt. Leora raised her hands again, desperate, crying out Kyle's name. And the bond answered. The light exploded from her chest this time, not gold but silver-white. It flared across the cliffs, forcing every wolf to its knees. Kyle froze mid-strike, his fur glowing where the light touched. The alpha screamed, his body dissolving into smoke. When the light finally dimmed, Silence reigned. The packs were gone. The cliffs were scorched with runes that glowed faintly. Kyle fell to one knee, panting, half-shifted, trembling from exhaustion. Leora rushed to him. "Kyle, don't—" He grabbed her wrist, eyes wild, voice low. "They'll send the High Alpha next." Her blood ran cold. "The king?" Kyle nodded slowly. "No one else can challenge the bloodline now. The hunt isn't over, Leora. It's only just begun." The night had never felt so still. After the roar of the hunt, silence pressed in like a heavy cloak. The forest slept uneasily, its shadows trembling under the weight of something ancient. Even the moon seemed to hold its breath. Leora and Kyle had taken refuge in a hollow cave beneath the cliffs, hidden behind a curtain of ivy and dripping stone. The air was damp, filled with the smell of earth and smoke. Kyle lay beside a small fire, his chest rising and falling in shallow breaths. His body was covered in half-healed wounds, each glowing faintly gold. Leora knelt beside him, washing blood from his skin with water she'd gathered from a stream. The light from the flames flickered over his face, strong, tired, still beautiful in the way storms are beautiful, even when they destroy. "Does it hurt?" she asked softly. Kyle's eyes opened, gold glinting under his lashes. "Pain's nothing new," she frowned. "You shouldn't have taken them all on alone." He gave a faint, crooked smile. "I didn't. You were there. You saved me." Her hand trembled as she wrung out the cloth. "I didn't know what I was doing. It just happened." "The bond knows," he said, "even when we don't." The words hung between them, soft but sharp. The bond, that thread that pulsed between them, had grown stronger since the altar. Sometimes it felt like a heartbeat in her head, other times like a whisper she couldn't quite hear. She could feel his emotions through it now, his pain, his fear, his yearning, and something darker, buried deep, guilt. Leora turned away from him, staring into the fire. "Tell me the truth, Kyle. What did you mean when you said the High Alpha will come? Why would he care about me?" Kyle's silence stretched too long. Finally he said, "Because you're not just anyone." Her chest tightened. "Don't speak in riddles." He sat up, grimacing as his muscles flexed. The firelight caught the scars across his back, old, jagged, cruel. They looked like marks burned into him by another's hand. "The bloodline you awakened isn't just a myth, Leora," he said quietly. "It's the origin of every Alpha line in this kingdom. The first wolves were born from its flame. The High Alpha believes that whoever controls that bloodline controls all of us. And you think I'm part of it? I know you are." Leora laughed, hollow. "I'm the outcast of my pack. They called me cursed, said my shift was broken. I can't even control what's inside me." Kyle's gaze held hers, steady and unyielding. "And yet you silenced 1,000 wolves with one breath." She looked down at her hands. The faint golden glow still shimmered under her skin. It didn't feel like power. It felt like chains, binding, heavy, inevitable. Kyle leaned closer, his voice lower now. "The High Alpha will come because the bond between us broke something sacred. When you touched the altar, every Alpha in the kingdom felt it. The old magic snapped." She froze. "You mean the bond?" "Yes," he said. "The mating bond that connects every pack to the throne. You shattered it." The realization hit her like a storm. The bond she'd felt wasn't just between her and Kale. It was between her and everything. When it broke, it must have torn through every soul in the kingdom. "No," she whispered. "That can't be true." Kyle nodded. "That's why the air feels wrong. The wolves are restless. The moon's been blood-tinted since that night. You changed the laws written by the goddess herself." The fire popped. Sparks scattered into the air like fleeting stars. Leora pressed her hands to her temples, her voice breaking. "I didn't ask for this." "No one ever does," Kyle said softly. There was a pause. The sound of water dripping echoed through the cave. Then Kale reached out, his rough hand brushing against her fingers. "When the High Alpha comes, he'll offer you a choice. Kneel or burn." She looked up, tears glimmering in her eyes. "And you? What will you choose?" Kyle's eyes darkened. I already made my choice the night I found you in the forest. The firelight flickered between them, golden, trembling. He didn't need to say the words. She could feel them through the bond, unspoken but undeniable. I would rather die with you than live without you. Outside, thunder rumbled. The ground quivered slightly. A faint metallic scent filled the air. Iron, ozone, blood. Kyle stiffened. He's here. The cave trembled as a low growl rolled across the valley. Not a wolf's growl. Something deeper. Something ancient. Leora crawled toward the entrance, peering out. At first, she saw nothing. Then the shadows moved. Tall, cloaked figures emerging from the fog. They didn't walk like wolves. They glided. Their eyes burned crimson. At their center, a single figure stood, broad-shouldered and still as stone. His aura burned with a cold black fire. Kyle's voice was a whisper. The High Alpha of the Blood Moon Court, Leora's breath caught. He's not even shifting. He doesn't need to. The High Alpha lifted his head, his gaze cut through the fog, straight into their hiding place, and when he spoke, his voice shook the air. Bring me the girl who broke the bond. The earth split open at his feet, shadows spilled outward like ink. Kyle stood, every muscle coiled, his voice a growl. Over my dead body. The High Alpha smiled, cruel and calm. That can be arranged. Then the shadows surged forward. Kyle pushed Leora behind him, his claws elongating in a flash of gold. Run when I tell you to. I'm not leaving you. He turned, eyes blazing. You will if you want either of us to live. The first wave of shadows struck. Kyle met them head on, his claws slicing through darkness that screamed like torn souls. The fire flared, sputtered, then went out. The cave plunged into chaos, black against gold, silence against roar. Leora pressed her back to the wall, light pulsing in her hands again. She didn't think, she didn't plan, she just felt. The bond throbbed like a heartbeat made of lightning. And then, it happened. The world went white. Her power burst outward, throwing the shadows back in a wave that shattered rock and burned air. The High Alpha staggered, his cloak whipping in the force. For the first time, his expression changed. Surprise, then fury. Kyle stumbled to her side, gripping her shoulder. Leora, stop! You'll destroy yourself! But she couldn't stop. The power had found its rhythm, roaring through her veins. Every scar, every wound, every rejection, it all poured into the flame now, raging between her palms. The High Alpha's voice boomed through the chaos. You think the altar made you free? Foolish child, it made you mine. His shadow struck, wrapping around her light, choking it, twisting it inward. Pain shot through her chest. The world tilted. Kyle roared and lunged, claws meeting darkness. The collision of their powers tore the sky. When the light faded, there was silence. Only the crackle of dying magic. Only the sound of Leora's breath. Shallow and broken. The High Alpha stood unmoved, though his cloak was burned at the edges, his eyes burned like coals. This is your warning, he said softly, voice cold enough to freeze air. When the blood moon rises again, I will claim what's mine. And then he vanished, dissolving into smoke, leaving only the echo of his promise. Kyle fell to his knees beside her, panting. Leora, look at me. Stay with me. She blinked up at him, dazed. The glow had faded from her skin, replaced by trembling exhaustion. He said, The blood moon. Kyle nodded grimly. 2 nights from now. Her voice cracked. Then we have 2 days to stop him. He met her gaze, fierce, unyielding, terrified. Or 2 days until the kingdom burns. The wind that carried dawn was not gentle. It howled through the ruins of the forest, bending branches and scattering ash. The air itself felt heavy, as if the world knew what was coming and trembled beneath its weight. Leora stood at the mouth of the cave, her cloak fluttering, eyes fixed on the horizon. The moon hadn't yet set, but even in its waning light, it bled crimson. The blood moon was rising early. Kyle joined her silently. His arm was bandaged, his face marked with exhaustion, but his eyes still burned like wildfire. You don't have to face him alone, he said quietly. Leora didn't look at him. He's not after you, he's after me. Then he'll have to go through me to get you. The firmness in his voice made her chest ache. There was no hesitation in him, no doubt, but that was what scared her most. Because if Kyle stood against the High Alpha again, she knew what would happen. He wouldn't survive. Leora turned toward him, her voice trembling. "Kyle, you can't protect me from destiny." He met her gaze, steady and unflinching. "Then I'll fight destiny too." For a long moment neither spoke. The fire in the distance flickered weakly against the dark. The silence between them wasn't empty. It was full, thick with the things they couldn't say. Finally, Leora took a breath. "If we do this, if we face him, it has to be on our terms, not his." Kyle tilted his head. "What are you thinking?" "The altar," she said. "It started there. It has to end there." Kyle's eyes narrowed. "You want to return to the Bloodline Altar? It's the only place strong enough to match his magic. The altar chose me once. Maybe it'll help me again." He hesitated, then nodded. "Then we go. Before the moon rises?" They moved quickly, slipping through the forest as dawn faded. The trees whispered their passage, some bowing, some recoiling. Even the earth seemed alive with tension. The creatures of the night hid from sight. As they walked, Leora caught glimpses of wolves watching from afar. Not enemies, but not allies either. Their eyes followed her, wary and curious. News had spread. The girl who broke the bond had returned. By the time they reached the clearing, the world was painted in red. The blood moon hung massive and low, its light spilling like molten glass across the ground. The altar waited in its center, carved stone veins glowing faintly beneath the surface, pulsing like a heartbeat. Leora hesitated at the edge. "It feels alive." Kyle's voice was low. "It is. It's the heart of our kind. Every shift, every bond, every howl, it all begins and ends here." She took a step forward. The ground vibrated beneath her boots. The altar responded, the glow growing brighter. "Leora," Kyle said, his tone soft but warning. "Once you touch it again, there's no turning back." She looked at him and smiled faintly. "I never had a choice, Kyle." Then she placed her hands on the stone. The world screamed. Light erupted, blinding and violent. It shot through the trees, through the clouds, through the sky itself. Every wolf in the kingdom felt it, a tug in their soul, a shattering in their bones. Kyle stumbled back, shielding his eyes. "Leora?" Her voice came through the light, breaking and echoing all at once. "He's coming." The air split open. From the crack between worlds, shadows poured forth. The High Alpha stepped out, his cloak torn by moonlight, his eyes twin infernos. The ground blackened under his boots. "So," he said, his voice smooth and terrible, "the lost bloodline returns to the altar." Leora stood tall, her hair whipping in the storm. "You called me yours, but the bloodline doesn't belong to you." He smiled faintly. "Child, it belongs to whoever can command it." He raised his hand, and the moon answered. The light turned blood red. The wind screamed. The altar cracked beneath her palms. Kyle leapt forward, shifting midair. Gold fur blazed in the crimson light as he collided with the High Alpha. The ground erupted where they struck. Shadows and gold tangled in a blur of fury. Leora tried to move, but the altar held her fast. Magic coiled up her arms, dragging her deeper into its pulse. She felt the power burning through her, the memories of generations before her, every wolf who had ever lived or died for this bond. She saw them, their faces, their howls, their pain. The bloodline wasn't just power, it was sacrifice. She screamed, her voice echoing across the clearing. "No more!" The altar answered. Silver fire erupted from her body, shooting into the sky, slicing through the red moonlight. The forest shook, the world bent. Kyle stumbled, eyes wide as the light consumed her. "Leora, stop! It's too much!" But she couldn't hear him. The power wasn't hers anymore, as she was its. The High Alpha turned, his face twisting in fury. "You dare defy the order written by the goddess!" Leora's voice boomed with something not her own. "I am the goddess's order." The words weren't spoken, they were felt. Every wolf in the kingdom dropped to their knees. The air itself bowed. The High Alpha roared, lunging toward her. His claws met the light and disintegrated. His scream tore through the night as the fire swallowed him whole. And then, silence. The moon turned silver again, the wind softened. The altar's glow dimmed to a faint pulse. Kyle stood alone in the clearing. His chest heaved, his claws slick with shadow blood. He turned in slow disbelief and saw her. Leora stood at the center of the altar, her skin still faintly glowing, her hair haloed in light. But her eyes, they were no longer just brown. They shimmered with silver and gold. Kyle's throat tightened. Leora. She looked at him, a faint, weary smile touching her lips. It's over. He stepped forward, reaching for her. You did it. She shook her head slowly. No, we did. He touched her hand and flinched. Her skin was warm, too warm. The light under her skin was pulsing faster now, fading like embers in the wind. Leora, what's happening? She looked down at herself, at the light seeping from her fingertips. The altar took too much. It needed balance, a life for a life. His heart stopped. No, I'm not letting you. She smiled sadly. You already did. He pulled her into his arms, holding her tight as her strength faded. Please stay with me. The world needs you. Her voice was soft, barely a breath. The world needs peace more. Kyle's tears fell against her hair. The bond between them pulsed one last time, bright, blinding, alive, then stilled. Leora's body went still in his arms. The light faded completely. The forest sighed, as if exhaling grief. Kyle knelt by the altar, his arms wrapped around her, the moonlight pouring over them both. The wind whispered through the trees, child of the flame, daughter of the bond. He raised his head slowly. The moon had turned pure white. The scent of blood was gone, the air was clean, calm, the world had been remade, and it was quiet. He stood, lifting her body gently, and whispered, You weren't born to be their sacrifice. You were born to set them free. He laid her on the altar, her hands crossed over her chest. The bloodline markings beneath her glowed faintly one last time, as if bowing to her. Then they went dark. Kyle turned toward the horizon, his voice breaking but resolute. I'll protect what she gave her life for. The peace, the choice, the freedom. And in the distance, the faintest whisper carried on the wind, a voice soft and familiar. I'm still with you, Kyle. He smiled through the tears. I know. The moon shone down like a blessing, its light pure and steady now. But in the farthest corner of the world, where the shadows still lingered, something stirred, faint but real. A whisper of laughter. A promise not yet fulfilled. The bloodline never truly dies. Would you have chosen her, or feared her too? Was she a savior, or just a girl cursed with too much fire? If this story lit something inside you, subscribe to Moon King Chronicles, because here we tell tales that burn. The forest sleeps again. The kingdom breathes again. But under the altar's stone, a single crack glows faintly with silver light. And somewhere in the dark, a voice murmurs, She is not the only one. The ground shivers. The wind turns cold. The blood moon stirs. This story isn't over.